And now here on Mastering Dungeons, we are going to get to our main topic for this week. We are going to look at the next few chapters of Book 3 of Planescape Adventures in the Multiverse. Book 3 is Turn of Fortune's Wheel. It's the adventure that they provide to show us this is what we see a Planescape campaign looking like. So we've gone through the first 4 chapters already. We've been introduced to the setting in the other books. We've been introduced to monsters in the other books. We woke up in Sigil in the mortuary. To escape, we went through either a lot of trouble or we just sort of walked through and got out. Then we got up into Sigil proper, where we may have gone out for lunch or we may have not. Then we go to a casino where we learn more about our predicament, or really we don't. We may play a few casino games or not, but we have finally met Shemeshka, and she is sending us out into the Outlands to search for a Modron who she claims has escaped her employ, and she wants him back. And so out we go. We find that the Modron used what's the skull thing called?
A mimir.
A mimir, thank you. A mimir that the Modron once owned. The Modron's name is Rome, R04M. And so if we can fix the mimir, we can find our way to what Rome was doing.
Right.
But to fix the mimir, we need to go to several of the gate towns.
7.
So we left off there. Chapter 5 is the first of the gate towns that we need to visit. And our question was, what are these chapters going to be like? After doing 2 of them, you are supposed to gain a level. All right, cool. So what are these adventures? Teos is showing us some art from the first of these chapters, chapter 5, Automata Recalibration. And he has shown you 4 pages. And therefore you have seen the whole chapter. This whole Automata Recalibration chapter is on a 4-page spread. I did not realize it because I look at on D&D
Right.
Beyond, but I thought to myself, I wonder how long this is. And
Yeah.
Teos is showing me.
Yeah,
It's
and
4
I thought of
pages.
that too because as I talked about in an earlier episode, I noticed when I looked at the printed version that there was a concerted, like everything is a certain size, which makes a lot of sense from layout perspective. And so it really is,
Sure.
each of these is a confined 4-page experience, which includes sort of typical things like there's going to be an encounter table with 4 options, and then a little tiny introduction, and then there's something you're doing around approaching this town, which actually felt very classic in its way. Like it's almost like when we reviewed the Great Modron March adventure, right, where it just has these like, and now this town, and now that town. It definitely has that feel. It's a small amount of space to create an experience with, and so I think that some of these experiences can fall a little short unless the DM does the work to flesh them out and really like it forces you to really think about what is it that I have here and how do I work with this to create a good experience.
Right.
Versus something you could just run as is and you're getting a bang up experience.
To put things into perspective, a page of full text in one of these books generally runs about 1,000 words. With a little bit larger type font, with a larger font, that's down to maybe 900, 850. So if you take out half a page for art, even if you stick with 1,000, that's 4,000 words minus 500. So that's 3,500 words at most for this adventure. I looked at it and I thought, okay, so for every 2 chapters you're supposed to level. How soon do you want your players to be able to level? after, at first and second, even third level, fourth level, maybe, I'm cool with after 4 hours of play, like one
Mm.
session level. After that, I may want 8 hours of play. Just give them a little more
Mhm.
time, a little more. If you're using resource management as a tool for fun gameplay experience, you need a little bit longer sessions to actually use those resources.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, okay, I want 8 hours of play within these two chapters. So that was my math going in.
Mm.
I
Mhm.
started reading without knowing how long these are, and I scrolled down and I got to the end. I was like, wait, that's the end? That's the end of this chapter? I was trying to get 4 hours of play in my head out of this, and this could take an hour
Yeah. It could. I think that
easily.
in general, you might see it balloon to two. Like I could see a lot of people running two per gaming session. We get people together, when you include kind of all the things that happen in a gaming session. But if you're running this in a tight convention experience, you could run these very quickly, because of the material being as concise as it is and the experience being as concise. There's not a case where you go to the gate town of Automata or Cursed and you say, hey, here's the map of the town and here are various things that you can experience. No, it's not doing any setting work like that.
Mhm.
It is
Yeah.
fully relying on the other setting book, which can be light in some cases, and just saying,
Mhm.
here's this very specific experience. And maybe we should just go through Automata, Shawn, and use that as a sort of like
Mhm.
framing.
Yeah.
Do you want to do it? Do you want me
Yeah.
to? What do you feel like?
You start and I'll jump in. How's that?
Cool. So, everything gets a flavor, which of course we'd expect, a theme to it, as the reflecting the gate town. And so here it's all about the rigidity, the lawful structure of automata. And this means, but sometimes it's funny because to create the experience, it might contradict or add a piece that isn't talked about in the setting book. And here, you can't. They don't want to have the design doesn't want the players to just show up and go to the gate because it's a lawful place, right? Go up, experience the gate, leave. Why would that be complicated? Well, the complication is there is a 19-hour line to get to the gate and you need a pass. And to represent this rigid society, it takes 26 hours of filling out forms to also get there. And this is despite the fact that what the characters actually want to do is just be near the gate. They don't even have to
Mhm.
use it. And I think to myself, this is a weird premise, Shawn.
Mhm.
You should be able to just walk up to the gate.
I'm fine. Yeah, you should. I'm fine. I'm fine with the premise because what happens is the players maybe get in line and they realize how slow the line is moving. So they may go out and say, hey, listen, we don't want to use the gate. We just want to get near the gate.
Mhm.
Now, that is beyond the comprehension of this super lawful form filling society. So someone comes to them. Someone comes to them and says, wait, you said you don't want to go through the gate. Well, tell me your story. And I'm okay with that part.
Because you're now doing
Uh,
the work of a good DM, right? Because there is an NPC who's going to come up to you at some point, but that's a little separated from
right.
this initial text. And
It's a little separated, but at least it's there.
Mhm.
I don't have it open in front of me. Actually, I do. Uh, at least the text says to the players, uh, agents of order. A stiff-looking Gazari with a sharp uniform approaches, sizes you up, and says, "You seem like you're in a bit of a hurry. What business do you have here?" So, at some point, I can see at some point the players, assuming that the players get in line and then start a little bit of a ruckus because they're going to try something,
Right.
right? You're not going to say to the players, I hope you don't say to your players, it looks like you have to wait about 26 hours in this line. What do you do? There will be players and groups that say, we wait 26 hours. And I
Mhm.
can say, okay, cool. When that 26 hours passes, you are told at the front of the line you don't have the paperwork you need. What do you do now? maybe the players say, we go get the paperwork. Great. If they do that, then I don't have to spend 2 hours role playing. I can just say, there's the paperwork. It's a stack the size of your halfling. What do you do? And if they say, we fill out the paperwork, I will say, great. Now you get back in line. It's going to be 26 hours. What do you do? And if they say, we wait, I say, fine. We get up there, we get what we need, and we get out of there. As soon as they try to do something hinky, we try to sneak up, we fight somebody, we cause a ruckus, we cause a distraction, that's going to draw the guards. And as soon as that happens, you have a window for this NPC, which you are talked about as having. I'm totally cool with that design, because it gives the players who just are going to say, okay, that's cool, we do that. It gives the players who are going to try something sneaky or to upset the balance, it gives them a way into the adventure too.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I will
So-
have lots of other complaints. Don't get me wrong, but that was one that I don't have.
So Aristimus the Githzerai is gonna tell you, yeah, I can somehow get you in line, but you've got to do something for me. There's this Beltha, a Githzerai troublemaker, who is in the inverse under Automata, and she stole a logbook for the Concordant Express gate train. And Aristimus wants that recovered and either capture Beltha, which gives you the full gold piece bonus reward, or for half value if she's dead.
Yeah, and so the characters are then told she lives in this inverse. She's also seen in the Divide Machine Tavern sometimes. So what do you want to do? If they go down into the inverse, they are told, okay, after 2d4 hours of wandering, you can find her hideout. Or if you go to the tavern, 1d4 hours later, someone shows up. We're getting a lot of 2d4, 1d4 hours when I don't know that it terribly matters. And I don't know that randomizing it has any bearing on the adventure whatsoever.
Especially Shawn, because we're told right before this chapter, hey, you might spend days, months, weeks, years going through the Outlands. And so there is no time whatsoever to this thing, right? That time almost doesn't matter. So do we really need to worry about whether it's 2 or 5 hours? In fact, we almost don't need to worry whether we spend a whole 2 days in line and filling out forms. Like it sort of doesn't even, there's no time pressure to this.
Right. It goes back to that unity of effect that I always talk about with Edgar Allan Poe, talking about writing a short story. You want every word that you use to be pointing you in the direction of whatever effect you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Adventures like this are short stories, so you don't want to put in superfluous mechanics, superfluous story elements. It doesn't matter if it's 2 hours or 8 hours when you find her hideout. What's more important is, why is there not any encounters going on while you're down there? Because
what is
that's
the
important
inverse
thing.
Yeah, what's going on down here? Like, help me understand what is happening here. And the only answer we seem to get is, we've got artwork which shows machinery, and then the final encounter has machinery. So I guess there's machinery in the inverse and rebels, but apparently not very many, and they don't apparently patrol the area or anything. But it's hard to tell because it's not a lot of experience, and I would rather it have been that. Forget how many hours it is. They can wander in there, and you have the latitude to create whatever experiences you want. Ideally, there would be some ideas presented, but space, okay, fine. But at least help me. That's this. And what should I be doing with the time down there? What are the themes to reinforce? What are the things that should stick out? Because the inverse might be completely lackluster run by one DM, or might be incredible experience run by another. None of that due to what's written here.
Yes, so much I want to say. I don't even know where to start. I will start with this. What's the glitch, and how is it affecting the places that the characters visit? That's thing one. I want every adventure to mention the glitch in some way.
A
Two,
plus.
Yeah. Two, what is Shemeska's plan? Shemeska is this mastermind. She would be doing something in all of these areas. If she wants to find
Mm,
Rome, if she has agents, they would be also involved in some of this.
mm, yeah.
Three, what makes this area fun for the players
Mhm.
that's different from any other area they could be in? I need an encounter to show that, to not just hint at it, right? Not just to tell me that it's there, but to show me what it's like.
Yeah, and
I need
unfortunately,
all of those things.
the map is kind of confusing. It's really hard to tell sort of what it's doing. There's a reference to stairwell. I don't know where the stairwell is on that map. But that kind of stuff happens. It's happened on products throughout
Mhm.
time. But the machinery that it grabs if you stand next to it, it it's sort of a strange encounter that I don't know what that story is that it's telling. And I agree with that unity of purpose concept. It'd be nice if this encounter with Beltha, who I almost don't know why, like, she doesn't think people should live rigidly. Why do you live in this town? And she'll just
Mhm.
sell you the logbook. So she's not, I guess she's just trying to profit from it. Like, I don't, she doesn't even have unity of story. She'll fight to the death
Yeah.
to avoid being a prisoner. But the whole point is that we can bring her in or knock her, and the rules allow you to knock her unconscious. There just isn't that sort of concept. And we do have some example encounters. All of these things will have a table of 4 encounter ideas. But, like, for example, one of the ideas is a green slod tries to take the flashiest item of clothing a character is wearing. Yeah, okay, maybe you can have some fun with that, but it doesn't really tell me much about this place. And it leaves me with those kinds of questions of, like, wait, so a slod can just somehow get into Automata and sneak underground, or maybe it was summoned. Like, I don't even know what, you know? And I agree with you. To me,
Mhm.
what I would want to do is understand, be working off of the common themes that we've already established. And the biggest one is your characters are glitches. And
Mhm.
maybe you've been to Automata. Maybe you're a lawful character or were a lawful character. And wouldn't it be cool if you could have experiences based off of that and your memories would trigger? What if one of you knew Beltha before? What if you used to be a resistance fighter, right?
Mhm.
That you could somehow have these kinds of experiences would be really cool and interesting. And maybe, it could be very cool. Like, how do you deal with the fact that one of you actually was Beltha's best friend, right? Or something like that. And I don't know.
Mhm.
There's a lot that could be done
Mhm.
here. It's not bad. I don't know that I'd say it's bad, but it just, to
Yeah.
me, it just doesn't rise to that level of a great experience.
Right. And I will happily and hardly admit that I had a hope going into this.
Mm,
I had a hope that with what we've seen before, that these chapters would be like full-blown 4-hour adventures. You don't need 100 pages to do that. You could do it in 10 pages.
mhm,
Uh, where it's a full 4-hour experience where you sit down and you A, learn the story, B, realize how it ties to the whole thing, right? Maybe Beltha, like you said, Tiz, maybe Beltha recognizes you and says, "Hey, John, nice to meet you," and pats you on the, nice to see you again, and pat you on the back. And you're like, what?
mhm,
But you have to play along with it. Maybe Beltha was hired by Shemeska to steal this for some reason. And so you get a little piece of the puzzle of what's going on that will come together. But really what I wanted was just a fully curated experience that I could play, not have to continue to build my own adventure as I go. If you want to be better at
yeah,
adventure design, write an adventure, hand it to a mediocre DM, and sit down with that mediocre DM as they run it for a group of strangers. If they can still run a decent adventure for those people, you've done your job as an adventure designer. If they can't, there's something lacking. I am a mediocre DM. Hi, I'm Shawn. I'm a mediocre
You're
DM.
not, but okay.
Uh, so I need more to, especially in a campaign, to bring this whole experience together for my players without me having to do a lot of heavy lifting. I can do a little heavy lifting. If you tell me run an encounter with 4 Slod and a Slod leader, and the Slod leader has been hired to take the PCs down by this other figure, I can
Yeah.
do that. But I
Yeah.
need more.
And I think there are three things that I'd maybe focus on here, right? One is the larger themes like we've talked about. Two is the fact that, like you're saying, does this create a cohesive experience that any DM can run off of versus that you are forced to improvise and bring your skill to bear because the thing didn't do it for you, the writing didn't do it for you. But the third piece is, and you hinted at this, but I want to make sure we don't gloss over it, is that we had been hoping, and when we were reading the other part of this 3-book product, that we would here get to see what people at our Gamehole Con in the crowd said, which was when I buy something, I want to be able to use it for parts, and I want to have this be a showcase of how you do it, right? So this is D&D's chance, Wizards' chance to take Automata and show you how to create an adventure in it. And I don't know that this is a great example you'd want to use. If I want to create, if I'm not using this adventure for what it is, and I say, okay, I want to run a Planescape adventure on Automata, and I want to just pull this in, I don't know that the parts are super great, right? You want to use the gate, you can't. You gotta like, I'd like more than that to give me the to say, that you get the full experience of this place, and that your characters, your players, are going to say, yeah, I can tell you all about what Automata is like. I've played an adventure there. This It's not bad. Again, I don't
Okay.
think this is bad, but it just doesn't quite rise to those goals. Checking those
Okay.
boxes.
I'm gonna disassociate disassociate Shawn from Shawn. And I'm going to say, hey, Wizards is fine here. Wizards is now trying to give people tools where they can make their own fun. And I know groups where they don't need 7 in combat encounters in a night to be
Mm-hmm.
happy. They're just happy to get together, role play a little bit, have a combat. But it's okay that in 2 of these chapters that come together for you to gain a level, you only have 2 combats total in those 2 adventures,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what I'm seeing. And so it's okay because it's more about the role playing and those sorts of things. And that's okay. Uh okay, I'm coming back into Shawn's body now. Where was I?
You
What
were on a
what,
whole.
what
It
happened,
was really
Teos?
nice. Yeah, you got all positive there for a while. I agree with you. I mean, I
Yeah.
can totally buy off on that too. But I think you want to look at the overall audience, and like we heard so very clearly from the majority of the folks in the audience at GameholeCon saying to us, I want to be able to use this thing for parts, right? And we hear over and over again, like, I want a great story experience and I don't want to do too much work, because what's beautiful is when you do the work for people, they can still add to that. There are things in products that I
Mhm.
find to be perfect. I could run this as is, and I will add to that because I want to insert my creativity on it. But it's great when I don't feel like I have to do the work, right?
Okay. I can't argue with that. Whoever you were talking to
Yeah,
before
no, that other
must
person.
be
Do we
yeah.
want to go over some of
Yeah.
these other ones? Because we have 7 of these.
I honestly don't. I mean, if you want to go over one that drew your attention, why don't we each take one and just
Yeah.
describe what happens in it?
So I'll talk about Excelsior, Chapter 7. So we'll skip the Carceri prison town, and I'll talk about Excelsior because this is one that I think is it has some interesting design to it, right? So here are the floating gardens and towers of Excelsior. You have no barrier. You can approach the gate by climbing the spiraling stairs to the Godstrand pillar and take in the gate. Now, if you're evil, you have to make 18 DC 10 wisdom checks, and each failure is exhaustion, but you can't go above level 5. So somebody could drag an evil character, up the stairs, eventually get them there. And there's a Hound Archon named Varel who will approach. He is a town guard who wants to solve the disappearance of several inhabitants. They've just vanished. And they have a suspect who was in the location of several of these. She is named Sincerity, is a tiefling, but he doesn't want to accuse someone who may be innocent. He has doubts, and so he wants you to look into it. So your immediate options are go speak with Sincerity, which she has a special effect of the glibness spell, so she can replace a charisma check with 15 when desired. And I guess the assumption is therefore she's just going to make the checks. I don't know, or maybe not. Maybe it's just easier for her to make the checks. If you question her, she's just going to tell you no, she had nothing to do with it, and she feels very confident about lying about all of it. But she is in fact guilty. Then you could visit her home, or you can question locals. If you visit her home, the only real clue there, she has a cage with sunflies, which are these planar creatures. And if you release one from the cage, it will make like a hugging motion. And the whole thing is they've been trained to grab an item, which is like a iron flask kind of object, and fly off to visit the nightmare hag, Uncle Longteeth. It's not really entirely clear sort of how this relationship's there. This is something for your DM to kind of feel for whether you want to make it really obvious that it's looking for a thing to hold or if it's a hug like it's described. But if you put something in its hands, it'll fly off. It's unclear whether you should easily be able to follow it or not. Again, up to the DM. And if you talk to people, you'll know that Sincerity keeps sunflies. This will come up again. And if you press them about the flight path, I always think it's interesting when adventurers say, like, if you press them on this thing, you probably won't press them about. But if they were to press them about the flight path, then they'll say, oh, yeah, it's a very regular path that these sunflies always follow. Seems like the weirdest thing for people to know. But if you follow it, you'll get to Uncle Longteeth's wagon. And the night hag here has 6 bottles that function as iron flasks. It's very obvious. She'll probably eventually, or he will eventually plane shift away if you're in combat. But you can then recover the 5 captured people. And if you restore them, you will confirm that Sincerity was guilty. And there are a number of ways that you can kind of win with Sincerity's guilt. So if you free those captives, if you capture Uncle Longteeth, if you can tell a good enough story with enough little bits of evidence, Sincerity surrenders and confesses. For reward, you get an iron flask, a lantern of revealing if you got Sincerity to confess, a brooch of shielding. And then there's a thing that if Longteeth escapes, he will later create he'll send a smoke mephit your way to deliver a larva with the face of one of the characters. And I thought that was really interesting because I don't really know what the point is. I think maybe it's supposed to be like, hey, maybe in a previous incarnation, you became a larva. It tells us to look at the DMG, but gives us no page reference. I think they mean the section in Hades in chapter 2. It was a bit of a puzzle to me, but potential. Just again, things for you to improvise. What do you think of all that, Shawn?
Mm-hmm. I think I want to talk about chapter 8, which is Faunel, vicious allies or vicious alliances. So you go to the gate town of Faunel, and they're just undergone a rebirth because the previous incarnation of the town merged with the Beastlands. So now we are getting, we're seeing what happens when this merger happens, and we have to restart here in a gate town. Since they're rebuilding, there isn't a lot there. There are a few, the buildings remained. So there are some buildings there that people are starting to occupy, and they're starting to trade and do these things. But we don't really get a lot of that. What we hear about is the 3 factions of sentient animals that are vying for control. And the first thing you meet when you enter is a giant sloth, a sentient giant sloth named Razak, who wears a ring of animal influence. He is a messenger who sends messages between these 3 animal groups. He can tell you exactly where the gate is. The gate is basically a pool of water that's guarded by a powerful ancient being who uses the Empyrean stats. So that's way above the CR of the players. And this creature is named Wrath, and it can flawlessly detect lies. So as long as you're honest with Wrath about why you're trying to access the gate, you get access to the gate. If you tell a lie or try to prevaricate in any way, he will whoop you. But assuming that you say, hey, we're here because we're trying to repair our guy, we just need to get up close to the gate, boom, you're done. So as you're leaving, then you see gnolls who are members of a group called the Vile Hunt, who are eating the remains of a giant ibex.
Hmm.
And the adventure assumes that you go fight these
Oh,
gnolls, but you really don't have to. So you could literally at that point say, that's bad for the ibex and just walk away. Having
nature.
completed chapter 8. Yeah. Red and Tooth
Hmm.
and Claw. Yeah.
And then get your level.
Now if you intervene, then get your level. If you intervene, then you can fight these. And you are told by your guide, Razak, that they've been hunting both normal animals and sentient animals in this Gate Town area. And it's bad. You should probably go tell the leader of the faction that this ibex belonged to that what happened. Okay, if we do that, we go to faction number 1, the herbivores. The herbivores tell you, well, yeah, we think that these gnolls are in league with this other faction, the predators, because the predators attacked some of our herbivores who we were protecting and killed them. So our leader stomped on the predator's leader, and he's probably mad about that. Ophelia is the leader of the herbivores. She's an elephant. So the characters are then hired to go check on the predators to see what the connection is to the gnolls. They go there and they meet the leader of the predators, a saber-toothed tiger named Evenclaw. He won't even talk to them unless they make a high level or high DC charisma check or bring yak meat, which you can buy for 20 gold pieces
Okay.
at the newly forming town. If they do this, they learn from Evenclaw that A, no, he has nothing to do with this. B, he is actually interested in knowing what's up with these gnolls because he doesn't know anything about them. And we're told there's one word used to tell us that he's being honest. It says that he is forthright with the party. Forthright does not mean honest per se. Forthright means expressive and
Hmm.
and out in front of things. It there maybe means honest a little bit, so we can assume that he is being honest. He says you should check with the third faction, with the flying faction,
Hmm.
because they might know more. So off you trundle to the flying faction, led by an albatross named Parvaz, all sentient, obviously, who could care less about either of the other factions or the gnolls. However, if you give him something, a magic item, or make a charisma check, he will tell you where the gnoll lair is.
Hmm.
Then you can trundle off to the gnoll lair to deal with this vile hunt at its source.
Hmm.
If you work out deals with either Ophelia or Ebenclaw to do this for them, they will promise you money and they will send animal reinforcements with you to help in the fight. I don't know, like the predators, if both the herbivores and the predators send people with you, I would think that would not go well as the dire wolves fight with the rhinoceri. But hey, whatever. And if you defeat them, we win the thanks of all the factions, or at least the herbivores and the predators, and off you trundle with not a iota of care for the power structure here, with what's going on, with any of the factions gaining ascendancy or coming together to form one cohesive group that could oversee this new burgeoning gate town. It just sort of, if you become invested enough to actually do this, it seems like you would become invested enough to want to help out with this power struggle.
Right. Right. And you'd want to ask questions like, well, how did this work before new Faunel came into be? Like somehow there must have been a balance between how all of you work. together. So,
Mhm.
at some point in the endless history of this place, it must have worked. Can we do that again? Someone tell me what that was like, and let's do it again, right?
Yeah, and again, there's no mention of the glitch. There's no mention of anything else that's happening in this area to connect to the rest of
I
this
mean,
plot that you're in the middle of.
these last two are a little easier to sort of port into kind of any campaign, maybe as experiences. And so maybe that is, if I wait, hold on, I'm going to channel another Teos, different Teos. And he's going to say that maybe what we're doing is we're divorcing from the overall story so that it's easier to just make these, little adventures you can run in a Planescape product or in a Planescape adventure without worrying too much about the larger adventure. So I'm not sure that that was really why this was done. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
interesting. All seven of these. This is one of these things that it's how we end up with nostalgia, right? That you're gonna have people who play through all seven of these, and they're going to have a fantastic time. They're gonna experience these
Mhm.
gate towns. They're gonna experience, wild types of creatures and the planar landscape, and it'll be a really neat experience, especially if their DM adds some things about the glitch or whatever. But then there are going to be some other folks who are going to feel like they're just moving from A to B and having really shallow experiences that feel a little sometimes contrived or limited. And at least in the ones that I've looked at, they all feel like it falls heavily on how good the DM will be at managing
Mhm.
this information and adding to it, which is,
Yep.
maybe we want to say Planescape is a product for expert DMs, in which case I can sign off a little more on that. But if I think of something like Wild Beyond the Witchlight, which is a whimsical setting with fantastic elements, right? It's different than Planescape, but it has some of that, similar piece. Those
Mhm.
approaches, while of course everything shines better with an awesome DM, in general, all of those experiences in the adventure work together and have a story to tell, and they work on their own. They work the information there is what you need to run the situation. It's presented to you very clearly, almost always, and it has a very clear indication of what the fun is, and how you as the DM draw out
Mhm.
that fun. And I don't see that same clarity here, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah. I was Rome in all of these places, and did Rome's presence have anything to do with this? Was Shemeska's presence here
Mhm.
a destabilizing force in any way? Is the glitch a destabilizing force in any way? We've said it before, but I'll say it again. All of those things, even the slightest mention of any of those three things gives me something as the DM where I can say, I know that you're glitch characters and that you don't know who you are and all of these things, but I'm throwing you small hints as we settle the inverse problem,
Yeah.
as we settle the problem between these three factions of animals. Even as we do these side quests, I'm able to link it back in some way so we don't forget the overall goal.
Yeah.
And I don't have any of that at all.
And I'll add another two little bits, which is that in the early chapters, we may have joined a faction, right? There was some work there that kind of talked us into joining a faction.
Mhm.
That doesn't really play out. Factions are often not present. They are sometimes, like in Cursed, for example, there is a faction there that plays prominently. None of the information tells us what to do with that, but at least it is there for us to play off of if we want to. Um, we
Mhm.
are given a walking castle, and there is no space devoted to saying what it's like to go between these different locations in this walking castle and what you might visit or see. We could just go to the source book, which is pretty brief on that, as we talked about it. It's a very short section on what's outside of the gate towns in between. It's just very, paragraph telling you that there's a powerful entity there. So there's a lot of work we could do as DM, but it's not done for us. And I think the biggest reason is, well, this adventure is 96 pages long. And so, like you were saying,
Mhm.
it would be great to get 10 pages per each of these pieces to where you could properly give it that treatment. Well, right there, that would be 70 pages for these. And
It's true.
then you only have 20 pages left for everything else. And so this needs to be a bigger product to
Yeah.
really deliver on that premise, or a differently organized product that's trying to do a different thing with it. But
Mhm.
and so if you step back and look at these, I mean, what do you kind of really like about these? Like, if you were trying to sell this product, what would you say about these chapters in the middle here, and what do you like about it?
They give good DMs a skeleton of a story that they can add to,
Mm-hmm.
and they give really, really good DMs um, a a blueprint that they can not just add to make a fun session, but add to make a fun campaign.
Yeah, yeah,
Really good DMs. Yeah.
mhm, yeah. I agree with you fully, and I think we're on point that it would be great if the glitch were a real story here, and some of these other story elements. The Shemeska part is really interesting. And I think Planescape's always a weird setting where it's like the factions are so important, but they might not be encountered at all at a gate town. Why? If you were a faction, wouldn't you be
Mhm.
involved in every gate town? And if you're Shemeska, wouldn't you be involved at every? Wouldn't you have informants at every gate? And presumably they do, and all they
Mhm.
do is they report back to Shemeska on what the characters have been up to. I guess that's probably really all they're supposed
Yeah.
to be doing. But okay, it's not how
Yep.
actual criminal organizations work, but let alone
Yeah.
multiplanar ones. But okay, yeah.
All right. So next time we'll get to chapters 12 and 13 at least, which talks about Outlands exploration and secrets of the Spire. That will give us the end of part 2, and then we can hopefully move on into part 3. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you for your support. Thank you specifically to our patrons who help us finance this whole mess that you're listening to. Uh, you can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/masteringdnd. We have many, many supporters out there. We have Master of Dungeon supporters. Thank you. We have a special shout out for our Master of Realms supporters in our show notes. And the Masters of the Multiverse, well, they get a little special thank you that goes something like this. Thank you, Keith Ammon of The Monsters Know What They're Doing, Craig Bailey, Steve Bissonette, Merrick Blackman, Evil John, Darren Chandler, Seth Eckel, Andy Edmonds at Nerdronomicon, Nathan Fuller, The Mighty Jerd, Ben Heisler and Paige Lightman, Shawn Hurst, Chad Jackson, Brian King, Jim Klingler, aka DM Prime Mover, Chad Lench, The Mathemagician, Eric Mengi, The Micro Ant, Sean Molly, Falcon Neal, Post Fiction RPG Audio, Robert Paisley, Vladimir Prenner from Croatia, Chance Russo, at Drago Russo, Ross Sandberg, Andy Shockney, Christian Simonse, Joe Tyler, James Walton, Graham Ward, and Trace. Thank you so much for your support. You can also help us out by leaving us a review via Apple Podcast or other means of listening to our podcasts, or you can go to YouTube and click that beautiful subscribe button. Teos, where can people find you and what are you up to?
Find me at alphastream.org. I am up to trying to catch up on all my many projects. Whew, so much to do. Where do we find you, Shawn?
You can find me on all the social medias at Shawn Merwin, and also the show is on most of those social media platforms at Mastering D&D. So we've skirted the gate towns. We've been collecting memories from the Mimir. What are we going to do now?
Hmm. Well, I'm
Ooh.
going to for sure take my walking castle, and I'm gonna just run over the gates of all these towns and just go straight into the center and take the readings that way, and then just walk out with my castle again. Who's gonna stop me?
Mhm. Yeah, I'm right there. I'm sniping anybody who gets in the way too. So that we can do it together. Pew pew pew.